COVID-19, is it a hoax or is it for real? Are mask mandates taking away our freedoms or is it ensuring our health? And vaccines, are they safe or are they harmful? This is Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and today we'll take a closer look at the power and impact of misinformation. Stay tuned. We'll be back right after these commercial breaks. Welcome back. This is Say the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you once again for joining us here on WNSB 91 here on the campus of Norfolk State University on this beautiful Sunday, 12th of September in Hampton Roads. Wherever you're listening from, whether you're on the West Coast, the Midwest, the Southeast, or the Northeast, we want to thank you for your support, and we hope and pray that you're having a phenomenal and blessed Sunday and getting ready for the new week, because here on Spartan Nation, we always look forward to bright beginnings and new beginnings. Speaking of new beginnings, this week we have a phenomenal week, an historic week of events that we have here on campus. This week, it is our Founders Day, but it's also the inauguration of our 7th president, Dr. Javon Adams Gaston. That's right. We are inaugurating and having the investiture of our phenomenal leader, who we call affectionately Dr. J. For those of you who are going to be in the area and able to attend the events, if you've already bought your tickets for the gala, for the Founders Day breakfast, which we will have April Ryan, who's a White House correspondent, NABJ, an Emmy Award-winning journalist who's going to be here as our speaker, gala on Friday night, and so many other events. I mean, this is going to be a phenomenal week for all of us, and we're especially excited for our leader. And I'll tell you this, if you can't make it, we want you to go to nsu.edu. That's nsu.edu, and you can click on the link which gives you the inauguration on all the calendar events. And you can view a lot of this online. Every day we have the Daily Joy and Inspiration segment. You can click on it, and it's a special moment, just a special word that we have for you. On Tuesday, for our freshman convocation, our speaker is our very own April Holmes, who we've had on Stay the Water, who's a Paralympian gold medalist, and she's going to speak to our students during that time period. We've got our play, which is going to be a musical tribute to Whitney Houston. We have also our Founders Day breakfast, as I mentioned, April Ryan, White House correspondent in Washington, D.C. Bureau. And in addition to that, we have on Thursday our 86 hours of giving. 86 hours of giving. This is a way that all of us can support our phenomenal institution. Just go to nsu.edu/give now. That's nsu.edu/give now. And you can give and support the university in any way that you like. You can direct your funds to any way you would like to. And we have the investiture that's going to be for our president as well on that day. And then finally, we'll have the inaugural gala. And then on Saturday, the campaign for 86 hours of giving ends at 11:59 p.m. on Saturday. And that is an opportunity for us to come out on Saturday to support our Spartan Nation football team as they go against ECU, Elizabeth City State University, here at William Dick Price Stadium at 6 o'clock. Again, so many great events. I've only had a chance to name a few, but you can go to nsu.edu and take a look, and you can support, come out, enjoy yourself. This is our time, our mission, and our vision, the inauguration of Dr. Javon Adams Gaston. And look, I like to take a personal point of privilege here. You know, I've been blessed enough to work directly with our president and currently now in the role of executive advisor to the president. And let me tell you, we've got the right person for the right time, for the right moment here at NSU to lead us, that we may be the towering force in our community, in our Commonwealth, across the nation, and as the NSU brand goes out across the world. So again, we want you to participate, and this is a phenomenal moment here in our time. Next, I want us to take a look, and before we get into the show, this is a very important show because we're taking a closer look, and this is our last segment in our Closer Look series. We've got Marvin here, Marvin Folks, who's our producer, our soundboard operator, and we've been talking about this the whole week. This show here is one where we're going to delve into what is misinformation and disinformation. How did it come about? What are its effects and impact on us? And what is the future of America if we don't get a handle on this? We want to hear from you as we go through this. So our phone lines, we're opening up this morning, 757-823-9110. That's 757-823-9110. But if you can't call in, we also want you to comment, like, and share on our social media at WNSBonline.org. That's at WNSBonline.org. Go to our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram. Give us your comments. We want to hear what you say because this show, this station is all about you, the community. So again, 757-823-9110, our social media at WNSBonline.org. But before we go into our Closer Look series of misinformation and disinformation, I want us to take a moment to remember 20 years ago, yesterday, our nation was really, it was something that was so unfathomable at that time period that we never thought it would happen to us. But on September 11th, 20 years ago, 2001, two planes ran into and crashed into the World Trade Center. We also had another plane that was hijacked that attacked the Pentagon, and another plane that was headed for Washington, D.C., whether it be the White House, the U.S. Capitol, Flight 93 that went down in Pennsylvania due to the heroism of the passengers there. And it was a time where our nation had to take back and sit down collectively and understand who we were as a nation, where we were going, and unify around our flag, unify around our values, unify around making sure that America never again would experience what happened on September 11th, 20 years ago. As we unified, we also remember all of those that died in the World Trade Center buildings, those that died on impact, those that died in the aftermath. We also remember the brave first responders that did not run away from it, but they ran into the towers. We have to honor them and remember them that helped to save lives. We also remember all of the first responders and those that lost their lives at the Pentagon and all those that lost their lives in Flight 93. We also honor those soldiers, our men and women in our U.S. Armed Forces that volunteer. Keep in mind, our Armed Forces is a 100% volunteer unit, and we have so many that say, raise their right hand and commit their lives to the protection and the service of our country. So we honor them, those that died in the war on terror, Afghanistan, and other areas where we fought this war. Even up to just last week, a week and a half ago, where we were evacuating and pulling out and leaving Afghanistan and getting our soldiers out of there, American citizens and those that helped us in that war. We had 13 individuals that died in a suicide bombing that gave their lives, for even toward the end. They gave their lives before the 20th year anniversary of this. So we honor them. And we also honor all of those that have helped us in those countries, that assisted us as a nation to ensure that we were bringing about peace, tranquility, and stamping out terror across. And I remember where I was, and I was driving when I heard the news broadcast come in. And my life has never been the same since. Your life has never been the same since. And our world has never been the same. But one thing we have been, we've been united against this, and we will continue to be united against terrorism, both foreign and domestic. So if I could, I'd like to take a few moments of radio silence to honor them. Thank you so much for your sacrifice. So, as I mentioned earlier, in September 11, 20 years ago, we had a nation united together for one cause, and that is to ensure that America itself would never be divided, would never be attacked the way it was attacked again, and to ensure that our values remain steadfast and our status in the world remained as a towering force of freedom, democracy, and all those things that we hold so true and dear in our documents, our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and why many, many, many people come to this country, millions, seeking to have the opportunity to experience those values. But today, we see a totally different America. Today, we see an America that is divided on everything. If I say I want to go right, someone else says they want to go left, and then there is a whole conspiracy on why I want to go right and a whole conspiracy on why they want to go left. If I say I want to buy wheat bread because it's healthier, there's a conspiracy on why wheat bread is healthier and things that are put in the wheat bread. It's almost to a point where it's reached a level of ridiculousness that we have to stop and pause and ask ourselves, why are we so easily divided over misinformation and disinformation? What's this power? What is this power that it has over us? And what's the impact upon us as a nation if we don't address it and get it right? Well, here on Save the Water, we don't tell you what to think or how to think, but we give you the information so that you can think for yourselves and come to an educated conclusion on why things are as they are, so that when you act or react, then you'll know at least as much of the facts as you can. But are facts all true? Now, by definition, a fact should be true. But now we have this phenomenon known as fake news. As a matter of fact, according to Scientific American, and it says in September 2019 article, it says misinformation has created a new world disorder. And I like that. A new world disorder. We can send out information about something that is false. It takes a life of itself to become real in social media, and people react toward it. We've seen it during the Black Lives Matter movement. That was a rally that was supposed to go out. People were supposed to rally and so forth. And there's supposed to be tens of thousands of people out there, and only a handful of people showed up. They're like, wait a minute. I thought we were out here to actually combat against Black Lives Matter movement. But it was something false that was sent out. And we're going to talk about who's behind a lot of this as it relates to the world powers. But I want to first kind of just delve into and give us a working definition of what misinformation and disinformation is. So Scientific American says our willingness to share content without thinking is exploited to spread disinformation. As a matter of fact, it says someone who studies the impact of misinformation on society wishes that the young entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley who enabled communication at speed had been forced to run a 9/11 scenario with their technology before they deployed them commercially. So we know that now you can just tweet. I mean, you can click, you can tweet, you can send a picture, and it goes out across the world. No limits. And it also lives in cyber world forever as well until, up these servers that are in it. And Marvin Folks here, he's shaking his head because he's a graduate student in cybersecurity here at our phenomenal cybersecurity program here at Norfolk State University. So he's shaking his head, saying, yes, this is all true. This is why this particular story here, this closer look is so intriguing to both of us, because from a technology standpoint, it has so many implications. From a political and policy standpoint, the implications are even, I think, greater, because it helps to dictate our lives and the way that we move. So let's take a look at this world of disinformation. Exactly what is it, and how we can start to combat it. So when we start to take a look at misinformation and disinformation, Pew Research Center talks about the future of truth and information online. Now, we have this new phenomenon called fake news. Okay? Fake news. And this came about around the 2016 presidential election, but even before that. And one of the major pushers of fake news was our former President Donald Trump. And he got elected based on that. He's an individual who was able to leverage this fake news phenomenon to give his narrative, and then for everyone else not to even consider other facts. But Pew Research Center, we're gonna get more to that, because the examples I want to give in how misinformation, disinformation, and fake news has really impacted our society. We're going to take a look at COVID-19, not just the disease itself, well, not the disease, but the virus itself, but also the vaccines, and then the masks. So Pew Research Center states, and this is a October 19, 2017 article. It says experts at that time were evenly split on whether the coming decade will see a reduction in false and misleading narratives online. It even stated that those forecasting improvement placed their hopes in technological fixes in societal solutions. Others think that the dark side of human nature is aided even more and stifled by technology. Now, I wanted to bring this Pew Research Center article out in this study because we're about a half a decade into post this particular article. And I thought it was significant for us to talk about it because they were looking at what was being forecasted. And this was in the midst of former President Trump's administration, beginning of it. So it gives us an opportunity to see what has happened so far, because misinformation and disinformation isn't going to change. As a matter of fact, in late 2016, Oxford Dictionary, according to the Pew Research Center, selected this term called post-truth as the word of the year. Post-truth was the word of the year in 2016, post-truth. And it defined it as relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than appeals to emotion and personal belief. I'll say that again, but I'll put it in a layman's term. According to Oxford Dictionary, that adopted this word, post-truth, as the word of the year, basically, post-truth simply means that people are ignoring objective facts, and objective facts are less influential in persons making their decisions and opinions and their actions. Rather, they seek information that appeals to emotion and personal belief. So if you believe that the government is evil, you're going to seek information that bolsters your belief and emotion based upon government being evil. You're going to ignore studies. You're going to ignore research. You're going to ignore symposiums by experts, you're going to ignore all of that. Matter of fact, you're going to even ignore, if it's life or death, people that actually died and say, you know what, it was fake. As a matter of fact, what's happened is that when we take a look at, and this article took a look at new information platforms, how it feeds the ancient, what is called, it feeds people's perspectives. And a 2016 study analyzed that 376 million Facebook users interaction with over 900 news outlets found that people tend to seek information that aligns with their views. 2016 study analyzed 376 million Facebook users interaction with over 900 news outlets and found that people tend to seek information that aligns with their views. So this study by Facebook, or this study that showed Facebook users' actions and behaviors, actually proves the definition of post-truth. You're going to seek information that's not objective, but information that agrees to you. But what is the negative of this? Is this healthy? Now, if you're in business, you look at the pros and the cons. It's called a SWOT analysis. Okay? You got to look at your strengths, your weaknesses, whatever the opportunities there, and see if you're able to actually take on or that particular new area of business, or you can actually, or if it's been what you're doing is effective or not. It has nothing to do with emotions. It has everything to do with the numbers. But we don't see that our society goes through that type of analysis at all. You know, what are your strengths? What are the weaknesses of this particular article I'm looking to? What are the opportunities? What are the threats that I have so that it can help you in strategic planning? That's why the business community is so effective in what it does, because it markets to where the data leads you. If the data leads you to market to this community or this demographics, then that's where it leads you. That's why you see stores open and close in different parts of town, because the data shows it's more effective over there. Not emotion, not your personal opinion. I think it should be on this side of the highway because I like it. No, the exit on this side of the highway gives people more access, better access to get into your store. And also the shopping center turn lane should be immediately after you exit. That way you don't have to go all around and by that time period get caught in traffic at a stoplight. That's data. That's research. That's studies. It's not emotion. It's not opinion. So you become more effective. But when Americans worry about that, this particular facet of our society going toward emotion, it says that a Pew Research Center study showed that after the 26th election, found that 64% of adults believe fake news stories cause a great deal of confusion. And 23% said that they've shared fabricated political stories themselves, sometimes by mistake and sometimes intentionally. That is astounding. Now, again, we're half a decade past this study. I guarantee you this is much higher. So the question becomes, has misinformation, has fake news proliferated? Has it increased? And if it's increased, what are the sources of it? And how can we start to combat it? 757-823-9110, 757-823-9110. What are your thoughts about misinformation? What are your thoughts about and disinformation? Keep in mind, I'm using those words interchangeably. What do you believe the effect and the power of fake news had on the last 5 years of our country? What was the effect that it had upon you and your personal opinions and how you moved and made your decisions? Go to our social media at WNSBonline.org. That's at WNSBonline.org and give us your thoughts. And also, you can go at Hot91 online. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on how fake news and misinformation, how do you feel about it? according to Tom Rosenstiel, he said misinformation is not like a plumbing problem you fix. It's a social condition, like crime, that you must consistently monitor to adjust. I've got to agree with that 100%. Why do I agree with it? Because it continues to come. Oh, with every story, there's an opportunity for us to give false narratives or to give the facts as it happened. Now, for those of you who are listening, you may know what I'm about to reference. For our millennials and others, they've got to Google and find out. But there was a show decades ago where a detective said, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Dragnet, when a detective came up and people would give their information and he would stop them and say, just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Not opinions. That's right, Marvin. Not opinions, not emotions, not what you think, not what you believe should happen, just the facts. And I remember growing up listening to authorities on our news stations. They were called journalists. Now, the argument in the news sector is that in the profession, we don't have classical journalists like we used to. You know, anyone that has a microphone, a camera, a cell phone, you can become a journalist. You can get out there. You can create a podcast and do all kinds of things. But with that, I remember, you know, the authorities, the Dan Rethers, the Tom Brokaws, and many others. When they said it, you believe it because not only did you trust them, but they were there. Coverage during Vietnam. I remember, you know, seeing coverage where, and again, I looked at newscasts and so forth. I wasn't born during the time of Vietnam, but even when there were riots in different cities, I remember seeing the journalists right there on the ground reporting and giving the facts of what was happening. And it really allowed you to make your opinion of it. Now, of course, depending on where you are and how you see things and your viewpoint on life and your viewpoint on ideology, you're going to form an opinion where you think things should be and should not be based on that. But at least we had all the facts. All of us had the exact facts, the same amount of facts. So the power, so we see what the issue is, but the power of misinformation and disinformation is that it causes us all to go in different directions. It causes us as a society not to be united. It causes us as a country to want different things and believe that we have to go at it in different ways to a point where we disrespect our systems that allow us to come together, debate the issues, cast our vote, and we live with the results because we know we can come back in 2 years, in 4 years, in 6 years, and do it again. So again, in life, we know that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but at least you live to fight another day. So the question still arises. What would happen to the online information environment if we don't get it right? And who's responsible for this? Whose responsibility is it to monitor, to help us, to overcome misinformation and disinformation? How do we now, as a society, if it's a social condition, train our minds and train each other to think about what is fake news, what is real, and what is fact? And finally, what's the implications of our country moving forward against powers such as China and Russia? These are all the questions that we're going to answer in the next segment of Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want you to stay tuned after these commercial breaks, and we'll see how do we fix it and where do we go from here. We'll be right back.
Today's broadcast is underwritten by the Norfolk State University Athletic Foundation, the team that partners with the Spartan coaches and student athletes for the advancement of the athletics program. NSUAF raises funds to support scholarships for student athletes, including critical aid for summer and degree completion programs. NSUAF supports all 15 Spartan athletic programs. More information at www.nsuspartans.com/NSUAF.
Blazing Hot 91 is asking you to tell as many people that you know to have their radio on at 3 p.m. on tomorrow for a very special announcement. That's all I'm allowed to tell you at this time.
Details.
Tomorrow,
3 p.m.
we are Blazing Hot 91.
This is Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. Welcome back here on this beautiful Sunday in Hampton Roads. For those of you that have been joining us, we've talked about the week coming up here on the campus of Norfolk State, where we have Founders Day and the inauguration of our 7th president, Dr. Javon Adams Gaston, who is the leader for our institution for this moment, for this time, is her for our mission and our vision. But though we got a whole week of events, from a speaker, alum, April Holmes, who's going to be here for our freshman convocation, who's a Paralympian gold medalist and alum of Norfolk State. We have our plays, a tribute to Whitney Houston. We also have our Founders Day breakfast with April Ryan, who's a White House correspondent and Washington Bureau. And then we have our 86 hours of giving from Thursday to Saturday. It starts Thursday, where we have the investiture of our phenomenal president. And then it goes all the way to the gala on Friday night, and then till Saturday at 11:59 p.m., where we play Elizabeth City State University here at William Dick Price Stadium at 6 o'clock. So you can come out and support these events that are open to the public. Not all events are open, but that are open to the public. Keep in mind that we also are adhering to COVID protocols. This campus is a mandate of vaccination. At the same time, we are still wearing masks and staying safe. And for those of you that can't make it, just go to nsu.edu and you can see all the events there. And not only that, but we all can participate by giving. So go to nsu.edu/give now. That's /give now to support our 86 hours of giving to our phenomenal institution. Also, we remember all of those that sacrificed and gave their lives in September 11th, 20 years ago. We honored them, and we honored those brave men and women that have fought for our freedoms and our safety here in our U.S. military, which is the greatest military in the world, helping to defend the greatest country in the world, where our values stand high, they stand strong, and all of the world to admire. So on this segment of Save the Water, we've started to take a closer look at the power and impact of misinformation. In the first half hour, we talked about what is misinformation and disinformation. We defined it. We saw where in 2016, Oxford Dictionary adopted the word of the year of post-truth, which simply means that people are now ignoring objective facts and more influenced by information that is more emotional and personal opinion driven. As a matter of fact, in another Pew Research Center study, we saw where over 376 million Facebook users, which is astounding, by the way. 376 million Facebook users. I think that's more than the population of the United States, right? And it's only growing. We're talking, this was like half a decade ago, Marvin. And so they found where their behavior, were searching out, they looked at 900 news outlets. Their behavior was searching out information that was more inclined with their personal beliefs. That is astounding. So when we talk about the power and impact of misinformation, let's look at what is done to our country. Let's look at who's behind a lot of this, foreign-wise and domestic, and how do we fix it and where do we go back? So let's take a look at COVID-19. COVID-19, we understand it's a virus that was released into our world, and it reached every single part of the world. Because of that virus, it was new. It's part of the coronavirus, SARS virus, but it was different. So researchers started to go in, and because of the research over the years with Dr. Fauci and others in our agencies, they were able to narrow down and pinpoint the protein and other areas of the virus to create a vaccine that basically targeted that. So, and then we also found that just like the flu pandemic of 1918, 1920, which, by the way, killed 1/3 of the Earth's population. Think about that. 1/3 of the Earth's population. Because of that, people had to wear masks. We're talking about something that devastated our world. We didn't have the advances in medicine. It devastated it. Again, history is our greatest teacher, our greatest forecast of the future. So with that, flu pandemic in 1918 and 1920, persons had to wear masks because you had to protect each other until, of course, a vaccine was created to help combat that. We really didn't see in history where people were pushing back against it. But now, in 2020, 2021, we have people that said, masks, what about my freedom to breathe? Well, your freedom to breathe depends upon your ability, your health, the ability to live. So we found where masks are effective against the spread of not just COVID-19, but if you got the flu, for people who are immune compromised, that are cancer patients who are treating with chemotherapy or have weak immune systems, they wear masks anyway when they go out in public. I mean, this was before COVID-19 because we find that it helps. But we see back and forth. I mean, I've seen school board meetings that became violent, that became so rowdy. Security had to be there to escort people out. We see where people pulling their kids out of school because they don't want them to wear a mask. It's a piece of cloth. That's all it is. So, and it's only because people are now gravitating toward political stunt speech messages, clothed in a truth, which is really not, as opposed to looking at the studies. We also see with vaccines. Now, think about it. When polio was here, we created, which was a terrible disease, we overcame polio by vaccines. Tuberculosis was here. There are still people that suffer, that I knew that suffer from tuberculosis. But the vaccine was created, and we were able to eradicate it, just about. We see many other diseases that are absolutely terrible. But because vaccines were created, we were able to eradicate those. As a matter of fact, as a kids, we all take what's called the Tdap shot. We all take the chickenpox vaccine. If you're older, you take a shingles vaccine. For those that take the flu shot, you take that. We take so many different vaccines that help us combat diseases and viruses that we know have existed, but because of medicine and science, we were able to combat it. But all of a sudden, we now have this misinformation campaign against another vaccine, COVID-19. So because the research was not placed out properly, we have now in the last presidential election, the last president we had was able to take that message, even though he contracted COVID himself and got the shot. He was able to take that message and utilize it to create divisions in the world. Now think about it. Some of the very people that are saying and fighting for the right of some not to be vaccinated actually have been vaccinated. I'll say that again. Some of the very people who are fighting for others' rights not to be vaccinated and spreading misinformation has actually been vaccinated themselves. But even when you tell individuals that, they ignore it. Even when you see various talk show hosts and celebrities and people of that note and local or national, statewide or national notoriety on their deathbed say, you know what, I made a mistake, get the vaccine. People ignore it as if it never happened. So when we look at just the example of using COVID-19, which we're coming out of, but using COVID-19 of just a simple piece of cloth over your face, wear a mask, or the efficacy and the safety, education of it, of the vaccine, we're seeing the country being split. We have countries outside the U.S. that are saying, we'll take them. We'll take your vaccine if you don't want them because they can't get it. Keep in mind, in the United States of America, we have enough vaccines to fully vaccinate every single citizen in the country. That's how wealthy we are. That's how blessed we are. But we're fighting against it. Other countries say, we'll take it. Now, sometimes, and you've heard this and I've heard it, sometimes you don't miss your water till your well runs dry. Sometimes you don't know the value of what you have until somebody else wants it or you can't get it anymore. And for many, many, many who are saying that I made a mistake because I didn't listen and be educated, that's the effect of it. That's the end result. We also saw the misinformation and disinformation campaign during the January 6th insurrection. We saw it right after it happened. We saw one congressperson saying, well, it was Antifa. I mean, clearly they were saying, it was not, right? I mean, clearly you could see that. But that was the narrative that he was putting out live on television, by the way. I watched it right after they left the Capitol. They were put out of the Capitol. Not only that, but you have some that are saying they were just peaceful protesters. They didn't do that much damage. Nobody got killed or anything like that. I mean, clearly, if you take a look at the videos, the real newsreel, individuals who are actually there that are still suffering from post-traumatic syndrome, if you take a look at the officers that died during and then after because of, again, what they were suffering with, it tells a different story. It actually tells the truth. If you take a look at the officer who had a duty to protect members of Congress and had to use his firearm to defend members of Congress because he was the last firewall there, it tells the truth as opposed to a story. So that's what I want to get to. The truth as opposed to a story. So with this, we now ask ourselves, how did this, domestically, we see what has happened. And we see what misinformation, disinformation is. But how is it spread and how are other countries using this against us? Keep in mind, as the United States, nobody can beat us militarily. It's not going to happen. We have weapons that can literally wipe out humanity. But as other countries, as kingdoms rise, kingdoms do fall. And there are other ways in order to attack countries. So we found that Russia, the former Soviet Union, started using what we call bots. And these are attacks, not just of information within the United States. So they'll send out information that's false. They'll use social media to do it. So that's the engine that they were using. They'll use social media, and they'll, in the last election of 2016, they actually targeted different demographics, and they would actually drive different stories toward that. In driving those different stories toward that, you now create a narrative that people start to galvanize around without doing research first. Because it's easy to click. It's easy to push it. It's easy to say that, yeah, I believe that these people are going to do this to me because they've done it before. So they play on your emotion. They play on history, real things that's happened, and they use it to exploit it. Now, there are various rhetorical devices that individuals utilize. I've taught, of course, in logic, where we take a look and we delve into the different techniques and the theories behind various rhetorical devices, whether it's a straw man rhetorical device or whether it's a rhetorical device that various dictators utilize to push various type of propaganda, manipulation techniques. These things are very effective in speech. And what these bots have done, they've taken the rhetorical devices that we use in speech and placed it into words and utilizing the engine of social media to influence individuals to make decisions, opinions, without checking the facts first. That's right, Marvin. That align with their views. Now, Russia was defeated by the United States during the Cold War era. We outspent them. You know, we broke the country with the arms race. Also, there were other things that took place, but that was the main reason. So they couldn't keep the Soviet Union together, so the Soviet bloc broke up. But they're finding that they can break up the United States, not by shooting any missiles, not by targeting our interests across the world, but they target the very citizens in the country to think and move in a way that's contrary to our values and belief, and really contrary to just critical thinking and logic. And it was working. But I want to take a look at another foreign actor. Take a look at China. China is according to the Council on Foreign Relations. This is a September 10th, 2020 article, roughly a year ago. They saw how China has ramped up disinformation efforts during the pandemic, and they've increased its manipulation of information as well as disinformation efforts around COVID-19 to damage democracies and to boost itself. And others, they say, well, you know, these are various mixed reviews, but we know how China has used disinformation domestically in their various regions of the People's Republic, like Taiwan. But they've expanded these activities, according to the CFR, Council on Foreign Relations, in taking from the Russian playbook of stoking divisions in other countries. Number 2, sowing public doubt about expertise. And number 3, spreading rumors. I'll say that again. China has taken the domestic use of misinformation and disinformation of their own regions and pulled from the Russian playbook in order to attack countries globally by, number 1, stoking divisions in other countries, number 2, sowing doubt about expertise, and 3, spreading rumors. Let's take a look at spreading doubt about expertise. Dr. Fauci, going back to COVID, I'm using that as our example here. Dr. Fauci has been on the front lines of infectious diseases across the world and has been a champion for not just the research, but also medicines and vaccines to help eradicate us of it. HIV and AIDS, where nobody knew what this thing was, what was happening. It was ravaging certain segments of our population. Then it started getting into the mainstream of our population. He was the one of many, that came in on the front lines and said, let's start researching this. And that's why we know so much now about HIV and AIDS and how we're able to help prolong the life of individuals who are infected with the virus. But not only that, but live healthy lives and productive lives and even become undetectable. But not only that, working toward individuals actually not being infected with the disease. He's done the same thing with other diseases. Now, COVID-19, he has been at the front lines of it. His credentials, his research, his dedication to that is unmatched. And we see it. It's all documented. But we have people that actually fight against him and believe individuals who have podcast, no expertise. They got a microphone. They're sitting at a desk in their house or garage, or they're shooting things across social media saying, I believe this, I believe that. Take the new phenomenon is taking animal dewormers, Invectorman, from veterinarian stores to combat this disease. And I'm saying to myself, you got to be kidding me. I remember when President Trump and others pushed this something that you would put in fish tanks or something of that nature. And someone took it, and there was a couple, older couple, they became deathly ill. The husband died and the wife survived. And I'm saying to myself, because of misinformation, disinformation, and an emotional decision, it costs the life of your spouse, and you have to live with that regret the rest of your life. That's the impact and the power of misinformation at the, not just the local level, but the human level. You're on our individual level. It can literally cost you your life and have regrets. I mentioned earlier in the first half of the show, you have individuals who are on their deathbeds, unfortunately. They're saying, I wish I would have taken the shot, the vaccine. I wish I would have listened more. I wish I would have done more education or work. That are now, unfortunately, either not with us or they're suffering. So it's all about being educated and understanding the truth, the facts to determine the truth, as opposed to rumors, and be misled to actions that we regret later on. So we see where not just domestically, we've caused this distrust in our systems through misinformation, but we also see internationally where countries are utilizing this principle of lies. And that's all it is. Let's call it what it is. Lies. Or you can even call it beguilement, right? Keep in mind, we should not even have beguilement is just as bad as lies, because now we don't know what to believe. It shouldn't even be in our mouths. It should be far away from it. Let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. It should be straightforward. Nobody should have to guess what you're thinking. Say what you mean what you say, but make sure you be hot or cold. Don't be lukewarm. But understand what you are saying and the impact that it has. So whose responsibility is it? How can we now combat misinformation and disinformation? One thing I think we can do is start to educate our society more on how to be critical thinkers and how to research for themselves. If we teach our society, listen to both sides or all sides, and then do your research for yourself on issues daily, then you'll get a better outcome. Now, trust me, I understand every day we wake up, we work, we try to do the best we can for our families and make a better, not just today, but tomorrow. Not only that, but we're also going through the stresses of the day. So it's hard, to actually sit down and research these things as academicians. We're fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I've always recognized that as being in academia for most of my professional career. So we have the luxury to do that, which is why it's incumbent upon me and others that have these type of opportunities and microphones and what we call the various pulpits that we have, whether we write articles, whether we teach young future leaders as we do here at the university, or whether we're able to be on the radio. It's incumbent upon us to make sure that we do our very best to give factual information and those resources where we found it so that you can go back and make your own decision. So I think first we can do that. But secondly, I think that the biggest responsibility is up on our social media giants. According to MIT Sloan Management School, the Management Sloan School at MIT, in October 5th of 2020, according to this article, it says that MIT Sloan research about social media misinformation elections showed that fake news and misinformation peaked online during presidential election years, and they looked at how they spread and what can be done to stop it. So again, they also found how the Russian government used Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to spread false information and conspiracy theories and to stoke divisions. They also showed in a 2018 study in Science where false rumors spread faster and wider than true information. And it goes back to persons seeking information that's for themselves. They also found where some of this information actually came from politicians, and it might even help them get votes. We have a caller. Caller, you're on State of the Water. Tell us your name, where you're calling from, and what's on your mind.
Hey, Dr. Claville. It's Dr. Rogers from the Political Science Department. How are you today?
Hello, my colleague. How are you?
Hey, it's good to hear from you. Longtime fan, first-time caller. And I just, I did a little bit of studying of this in graduate school. And one of the things that I've learned more than anything until we can get some sort of policy response is it's really on us, It's on us to try and figure out what's true, what's not, and how to figure out if something's likely to be true or not likely to be true. And tell you the truth, there was a story a little while back. It was about an Oklahoma hospital overrun with patients ODing on that horse drug, ivermectin. I got taken in by that. I'm not exactly proud to admit that. I thought it was true. Turned out it wasn't true. And the reason I'm calling is just to point out that there's two ways we go about figuring out if something's true or not. There's things like whether or not something's deductible on your taxes. You got to make sure that's right, or else you're going to have a hard day with the IRS.
Very much
but
so.
The other way is related to what we want to believe, what we want to think. And the term in the literature is goal-oriented motivated reasoning. So if I ever hear something and I find myself thinking, is that true? The first thing that I always try and figure out, at least as long as I'm not getting taken in, happens to the best of us, is does it fit in with things I already believe? That doesn't mean it's not true, but it does mean you have to be more careful. You have to be a more discerning consumer of information if you're like, oh, yeah, that says something bad about someone I disagree with. And that's a way of telling whether or not, well, like I said, doesn't mean it's automatically untrue, but it does make me more cautious.
Absolutely. Dr. Rogers, thank you so much for, of course, your support of the Center for African American Public Policy. He's our research analyst for the center, but also you support us Save the Water. And I agree with you 1,000%. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good, Dr. Claville.
So just as Dr. Rogers stated, it really depends upon us. It depends upon how we digest information. And I thank him for his transparency. He said he was bought in by ivermectin. But if he found out after he did his research, it wasn't true. And I've had other colleagues, well, one other in particular, send me information about it. I didn't even respond. I was like, no, this can't be, I can't believe you're thinking this way. But again, all of us have been caught up by something that was false. But when we took a look at it, we said, no, it can't be that. So we have to be honest and transparent with ourselves. And I thank Dr. Rogers for that, that very enlightening call and also transparent call. And once we're honest with ourselves and understand how to go about seeking information that doesn't agree with us and understanding it, then we'll be better off to make a better decision. But I also want to say, he mentioned something else. It's about policy around social media giants. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of these social media giants, I believe, have to do their due diligence. They've started. There were Capitol hearings with Facebook and others and Twitter after the 26th election and so forth. And they started that. So now you see where misinformation is taken a look at. And if it doesn't agree with facts, they flag it and they take them down and take their privileges away. That's one part of it. But through this particular method, we have to start to move forward and understand that we have to get it right. There's one other text I want to share with you. It's called The Hype Machine. In The Hype Machine, that's written by a professor at Sloan. It's a 4-step plan for researchers to measure and analyze social media manipulation. Take a look at it, and it gives us an opportunity to really analyze where we're going and how do we get there. So once again, we want to thank you for joining us here on State of the Water. Marvin, every time we get into a phenomenal discussion, I have so much more to share with you. Time leaves us. But on this show is where we bring policymakers, movers, and shakers to you to discuss issues that are important to the community. And we don't tell you what to think. We don't tell you how to think, but we give you all the information so that you can make a better, more informed, educated decision. Continue to join us every week at 1 p.m. here on WNSB on the campus of Norfolk State University, or catch us on our YouTube channel and social media. Until next week, Be well. God bless.